The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. Tribes now have a letter from the U.S. Treasury Department with instructions on how $20 billion will be dispersed. The money is from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, which is authorized by the American Rescue Plan. $1 billion will be divided equally between eligible tribes. The bulk of the money, $19 billion, will be divided with 65% going to tribes based on enrollment numbers the tribe provides, and each tribe must have its enrollment numbers certified. The remaining 35% will be distributed to tribes based on the employment numbers. Again, tribes must certify the employment data. There will be two payments. The deadline to submit information to the Treasury for the first payment is May 24th. A court ruling goes against the Klamath tribe's effort to save an endangered Oregon species. A U.S. district judge ruled against the tribes in a lawsuit that accuses federal regulators of violating the Endangered Species Act. The tribe says the Bureau of Reclamation is letting water levels fall too low for suckerfish to spawn. The Klamath tribes consider the federally endangered fish central to their creation story and culture. Tribal Chairman Don Gentry says the Klamath tribe isn't the only tribe affected. They are working with other tribes on the river, like the Yurok.
We're going to continue to do what we can to advocate and stick up for our fish. But we also support our downriver, our folks, and I appreciate that level of understanding. We've had quite a bit of engagement with the Yurok tribe at the mouth of the Klamath River.
The region is confronting one of the driest years in memory. The tribe is expected to appeal the ruling. There are two Native Americans running for the mayor of Seattle. Colleen Echohawk is the executive director of the Chief Seattle Club. It's a nonprofit day center and human services agency which serves the Native population there. Echohawk is Pawnee and Athabascan. Casey Sixkiller is Cherokee. He's been a political intern and legislative assistant in his long political career. He joined Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin's office early last year, and both are advocates for people who are unsheltered. There are 16 candidates so far. The primary election is set for August 3rd. More and more tribes are rolling the dice to get in on Las Vegas. In October, Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment became the first tribal enterprise approved to run a casino in Las Vegas. 7 months later, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians announced its purchase of the Palms for $650 million. And Hard Rock International, which is owned by the Seminole Tribe of Florida, is voicing interest in moving to the Vegas Strip. Over the years, tribal casinos have expanded into markets beyond its lands. Catherine Spildy is a professor at San Diego State University who has done extensive research on tribal gaming. And she says this is a natural evolution and expects Las Vegas to benefit greatly from having tribal operations in the city that never sleeps. As students head into graduation season, another family finds itself in the middle of a disagreement over allowing Native students to wear tribal regalia to a high school graduation. At Cloquet High School in Minnesota, Sheila Lamb was shocked to hear that her daughter would first need to gain approval from school administrators to wear traditional regalia. Her daughter, Maya Fairbanks, is 18 and a citizen of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. Lamb contacted school and district officials, as well as the local leader of the American Civil Liberties Union, about her concerns. To read more about this story, go to our website, IndianCountryToday.com, and search for the headline, "Graduations Shouldn't Be Another Form of Erasure." Along two rivers in British Columbia, there's some art that's so big it can only be seen from the sky. Alex Stoney is Gixon First Nation, and he's a photographer. He was walking along the river when the idea clicked to make Northwest Coast-style form lines. That's when he and his sister, Michelle, began creating images from driftwood and rocks scattered along the shore. Once finished, Alex captures the images from the air using a drone. The first work they created, The Hand, took more than 16 hours to complete. The team says they will get back to the riverbanks this summer to tackle the complex design of spawning fish. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Coming up next, making music during a pandemic.
We'll hear from Brent Michael Davids, who's in the process of composing several projects right now. Pandemic restrictions and the social justice movement are colliding on stage in Saint Paul, Minnesota. The result is small-scale compositions that are premiering this month, all composed by people of color. These solo pieces are made for wind instruments, and the concerts are being streamed online by the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra. Brent Michael Davids is one of the composers, and he joins us now. Welcome, Brent.
Hey, good to be here.
You have a long history of composing. Tell us about this work and how it fits into your canon.
Yeah, I've been, as this summer, I've been composing written music for 45 years. So that's a lot of scores. So this is another in the long line of musical scores. This is for solo flute. It's called Top Tonahana, and it's that means we speak in the Mohican language, and it's a sort of a duet for one person. So it's got like, if you can imagine a conversation between two native speakers, but played on one flute, that's what this is for Julia Beauregard-Cogan at the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra. She's the principal flutist, and she's performing it on May 22nd at 8 o'clock Central Time.
One of the things that's interesting here is that the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra is using this concert as a way to address issues in St. Paul, particularly around the violence with George Floyd's murder. How does that work for you? Or is that why you wanted to be involved, I guess would be a better question.
Yeah, well, I lived in St. Paul for a number of years too, so I'm familiar with the whole area and the people. But the initiative is, it's a good one. St. Paul Chamber Orchestra has a long history of doing innovative programming, going all the way back to Dennis Russell Davies as a conductor. They were commissioned Louis W. Ballard's work, Incident at Wounded Knee, and premiered it back in the 70s, I think. That was St. Paul Chamber Orchestra as well, under Dennis Russell Davies. So they're engaged in good programming and diverse programming. But, since Black Lives Matters and missing and murdered Indigenous women has come to the forefront finally, they're taking the initiative to do more diverse programming, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Is it more challenging to write a solo piece?
Yeah, in some ways it is. When you're writing for a full orchestra, a chorus, or something with a lot of more instruments, there's more diverse of sounds, and you can get really big sounds. Like, one of the benefits of writing for orchestra is we can write sounds that are huge, really dynamic. It can go from small sounds to huge, massive sounds. And with a solo piece of any kind, you can't really do that. There's only, a minimum level of volume you can get out of a solo instrument. So you rely on a lot on other techniques and rhythms and melodies to get the point across. So, the orchestration is not really factor that big into it. So it is a different type of thing. Writing for solo or chamber works is different than writing for bigger ensembles. Yeah.
Technology has always changed music really throughout the history. And with the pandemic, it's changing again. What does it mean to you to have an online audience as opposed to somebody who's actually there?
Well, for me personally, it isn't that much of a difference because I do most of my work in my own studio anyway. I'm in my studio right now, and I'm used to working a lot alone, and I'm producing sheet music a lot of times for live players. So in that sense, I'm still doing the same work that I would normally do anyway. I spend a lot of time on my own, but it affects the performers a lot more than it affects me. Like the performers can't get together. So if we have a recording we need to do in the studio, like some scoring stage studio with full instruments and a lot of musicians, it's hard to get those people together because of the pandemic. So a lot of stuff has been put on hold. Some of the projects that I've been scheduled to work on have been put on hold. So I continue my work and steadily, but at the same time, I feel I have more sympathy, I guess, for the performers that have had to wait and the choruses that can't sing together through the pandemic than I do for me.
I want to ask you about another project you're working on with the Lenape Center. Tell us about that.
Yes, the Lenape Center's we're celebrating our first decade of it in existence right now. And I'm now a co-director. I was just volunteering at the beginning. And we wanted to we're involved in doing large scale projects. We've did an opera called The Purchase of Manhattan. We're based in what we call Lenape-Hoking, which is like the Lenape homeland, which is like, Manhattan and the surrounding areas into New Jersey and around. And the mission is to invite Lenape people back into Lenape-Hoking. So I wrote a song called Lenape-Hoking to help promote that effort.
And we'll take a second to listen to some of it.
To be great for the clan. No signposting, coasting, or ghosting. Lenape-Hoking is right where I
I understand the chorus is really remarkable. Do you want to tell us about some of the music, the singing music?
Yes. Well, I was searching around for someone to sing it and asked a few people, and then I ended up just singing it myself. So I'm not really a singer, so I can't listen to my own voice, but I did it anyway. And the chorus is Adrian Cummins is another co-director of Lenape Center. He sings backup on the chorus. And also Cochise Anderson is a longtime indigenous singer, songwriter, actor, all-around performer. And he sings on the chorus as well. And there's great musicians on this recording as well. Really top players.
You think about invisibility being an issue for basically for indigenous people. But for the Lenape, it's like magnified because they're in the center of so much of commerce and industry. And yet, even on those lands, the invisibility is a huge factor. Something like this can really help change that.
Yes, I could. I mean, that's a big issue with all of us, really, the Black Lives Matter, missing and murdered Indigenous women. I mean, missing is in the title, right? Erasure is been going on for decades. I'm working on another Requiem for America. It's a huge project I'm working on. 18 movements, 90-minute work, full chorus, Native American chorus, full orchestra, 4 operatic solos. And I'm going to try and get it performed in all 50 states eventually. But the movements I'm working on now are, all about the erasure of Native people all across the country. I just read through the, J.R. Doolittle report, the infamous conditions of Indians in America, I think it's titled, and reading about, Kit Carson and the Navajos and the Long Walk, and he did a scorched earth campaign through Canyon de Chelly and took like 10,000 of their sheep and livestock and burnt all the peach trees in the entire canyon, and it was horrible. So I'm reading through this. All of these incidents happen all across the country, and so if we can do anything to help bring awareness that Native people are still here, that we're alive, that Lenape people are still in Lenapehoking, there are people still living there. Of course, plus the tribes in Oklahoma and tribes in Canada and Munsey's. Anything we can do to bring that to the forefront is a good thing.
I'm interested in how you can convey that with music, and I'll be really interested in listening to it. One of the things about Lenape that I always find interesting is as the country, and particularly Canada, goes through more and more recognition of tribal lands, imagine that on Wall Street or places across New York City where that recognition could be routine and yet try to do ways to elevate the Lenape story.
Yeah, I think about that too. Like, people complain here, in the Midwest, I hear complaints all the time about fishing rights or hunting rights, or they're out fishing out of season, right? The state gets angry because the Indians are out on the lake fishing, before the season opener starts in the state, and they complained. And my response is like, well, give the land back then. You signed an agreement, give the land back. The same would be for New York. I mean, imagine giving all that land back to the Native people, or if the Native people were in charge from the very beginning. Like, what if we never lost the land at the beginning? We'd be in charge of everything. And I guarantee you it would be a different country, because Native people, the foundation of Native life is about being related. We're all related. The relationships are paramount for Native people. And so how we handle each other and how we handle the land is going to be totally different than how it turned out in Wall Street and New York and all the states where the land was forcibly removed from us. And I don't know, it would be a different country. I mean, I doubt we would go on to like form the Bureau of White Affairs or anything like that. It would be a totally different kind of country that we'd be living in.
Indeed. We have less than a minute left, but I want to ask you what advice you have for young people as they think about basically careers in music.
I think don't give up. Like, you have your individual voice. Like, there's a lot of pressure to conform. You got to get your portfolio to match. You're listening to the radio. You're intrigued by what you hear, inspired by what you hear. But my advice would be to take a listen to your inner self. Like, one professor gave me a lesson one time. He said, imagine everything that you know about music. And this was like maybe 12 years into my career. He said, imagine taking all of what you know and throw it out the window. And so that means all my scales and theory and instrumentation and all the stuff that I learned, and set it aside what do you have left? And I had to really think about who I really was and let my voice come through in my music. And that was one of the most important lessons I had. So I think if the more unique and the more creative you are, that's going to actually work to your benefit. And so I would advise people to avoid conforming to the pressures that people want you to conform to. Be yourself, be an individual, speak with your own voice, and keep writing. Live long and keep writing.
Great lesson for us all. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Up next, changing the name of a tribe, but not the mission. Most news organizations, including ICT, have a style book. And in the style book, we go through and make sure that words are used the same every time. One of those names is a tribe, Muscogee Nation. In our style book, it was always Muscogee, Creek Nation. And that's because that was the formal name of the tribe. Now that's been changed. So what prompted this change? Kolby KickingWoman joins us now to discuss the name change and what it means and what it doesn't mean. Welcome, Kolby.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me today.
So tell us about the new name.
So yeah, the Muscogee Nation, formally and in their constitution, they are still the Muscogee Creek Nation. And when it comes to proclamations and legislation, that will still be there. But the tribe thought it created some confusion. The Creek was a misnomer that was given to them by the British, as Jason Salzman and Brian on the Hill, who created the new logo for the tribe. It was given to them, because they lived along the waterways, and they are the Muscogee people, Muscogee Nation, and they felt that cleared up some confusion.
So this is partially a branding exercise because they have a new logo that's coming out at the same time. And of course, in every style book, they're going to have to change. How does this word get out with the tribe?
Well, they did a pretty cool couple-minute video explaining the new logo, kind of everything that went behind it. Brian on the Hill, the creative designer, Muscogee Nation citizen who created it, took inspiration from Mississippian design from pottery and shell carvings. And the number 4 represents a lot in the tribe. The 4 represents balance. There's the 4 seasons, of the 4 lunar phases. The Muscogee Nation has 4 core values of tradition, integrity, dignity, and excellence. And so that was important to him to have kind of meshed in there. And as you said, the new logo will allow them to, use it on buildings. And as the press secretary, Jason Salzman, said, they do so much more than there's so much more than just a tribal government. They pave roads, provide healthcare to natives and non-natives alike, put money into ad conglomerates and galas. And so this gives them a little more flexibility and brand recognition.
How are tribal citizens dealing with the change?
So the decision was made on an executive branch level, and it has been in discussion since last September, a little bit after the McGirt decision came down, and they felt it was an opportunity for them to reaffirm who they are as a nation. Not everybody was on board. It wasn't something that was put to a vote. But Jason Salzman wanted to make it very clear, as I said earlier, Creek isn't going anywhere. They encourage their citizens that, want to be known as Creek citizens to do that. But, they're happy, people, for everyone, if they want to be called Muscogee Nation citizens, they can do that as well.
This is kind of almost a leading indicator because a lot of tribes are having this discussion, including the tribe you're a member of.
Yeah, it's 2020, it's a new era. It's tribes, they do so many things, and so for them to be able to create that brand identity and have that outward face to the public, if you will, is important.
And part of it, I think, is the way particularly younger tribal members are using their indigenous base name rather than the formal Bureau of Indian Affairs name as kind of part of the cultural shift going on.
Yeah, the next generation is very forward thinking, and we've seen that in a lot of different ways in recent years.
You even see it with our reporters that choose to say Diné instead of Navajo on their bylines. But it's true for more tribes than just that.
Absolutely. As you said, I'm Blackfeet and Grovant, but in recent years, a lot of Grovant have been going by Aani, which is the White Clay people. And I think it's just another way to, ground yourself in who we are.
We only have about a minute left, but I wanted to ask you what else you're working on.
So today I'm keeping an eye out for legislation from Tom Cole. Speaking of Muscogee and Oklahoma, he is introducing legislation that will allow the Cherokee Nation and Chickasaw Nation to compact with the state on jurisdictional issues stemming from McGirt. That's pretty big news. McGirt's kind of been lingering out there for almost a year now, and things are starting to move forward with that.
Kolby KickingWoman, thank you so much.
Hey, appreciate it for having me here.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. We will be back with another edition tomorrow. I'm Mark Trahant.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing rock. This is Indian Country Today.